As people are joining us, we'll get started. But I'm Megan Dickerson, and I'm the Director of Exhibitions at the New Children's Museum. And today I'll be joined by Lonnie Bautista Cabanilla, who's our Senior Manager of Programs. Lonnie, you want to say hello?
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining.
Lonnie is going to be the chief moderator in the chat section and comments. So if people have questions there, she'll help out, as well as Tomoko Kuta and Amy Gray. Amy is our education manager and Tomoko Kuta is our deputy museum director. So where is this coming from? Why did we decide to do this? And this group of us, Lonnie and Tomoko and Amy and I, have been meeting on Zoom, as many of us have since we've been working from home. And we had some really hilarious moments where either there was a cat running into the picture, or you know, Mila, who's Lonnie's daughter, needed to be cuddled, or Amy, who is constantly pacing like a superwoman. She'll be walking around with her littles while also on a Zoom call and dealing with two children who are under 4. So we just kept saying, you know, this is what life really is like right now. And so we thought of, we're doing this and we're having conversations and sharing with each other, but while the New Children's Museum is closed to the public during this crisis, how can we connect with our community in a broader way? So this is our experiment, True Tuesdays. We'll get through this. Every Tuesday we're gonna come on, and we're open to suggestions about different times, but we thought this might be wishful thinking, that this might be nap time for some people on Pacific Standard Time. And the goal of it really is to connect with our community and learn from each other. So each Tuesday we'll start with a short intro where we kind of go through some of these things. And I love, this is already so True Tuesday. If you can, mute your mic, though I love hearing what's happening in your lives right now. I hear some little voices. So we're gonna do the intro. We're gonna do a short talk from one of us, from Tomoko, Amy, Lonnie, or from me, about something that is our area of expertise, but also something that we're curious about. And then we'll have some time for a group conversation at the end and see where that goes. Right now we're thinking 18 minutes, but if we have more time, we will talk for longer. So a few ground rules. If you can, mute your mic. You can use video if you like, you don't have to. We'll see how many people get on the call. Sometimes if there's video for everybody, it can overwhelm it a little bit, but I don't think that'll be a problem. We are recording the session so that this will be available for you later. So in other Tuesday talks, if your planning doesn't work out, that you can find time to hang out with us during this time, you can always look at it later. And then post questions in the chat. Lonnie, if you could say hi again.
Hi, everybody.
So Lonnie will be helping. If you want to submit something privately to her that you don't want to put out to the whole chat, feel free to do that. She's Lonnie Bautista Cabanilla. And then also Amy Gray and Tomoko Kuta are also on there, the other staff members, and they can help as well. So first of all, we want to kind of see who is here. So in the chat, if you can, give us a sense. Who is here? Who has kids under 5 years old? Who has kids over 6? Okay. Got some littles, got some 4-year-olds. The other questions are, you know, are you working from home? And if you're working from home, is it the first time? Hi, Meg. And then anything else that you want to share to introduce yourself to the group? We're going to go through our little talk, but later on, we'll hopefully have some time to get to know each other. Oh, hi, Charles. An adventure. Yes, working from home. I like the way you put that. It is an adventure. Okay, so keep on adding those in and we'll keep going through this. Come on. My screen has frozen. Oh, there it is. Okay. So before we get started, we just want to make it clear, during this time, you don't have to be a super parent. You don't have to have activities planned for every minute of the day. You are doing the best you can under the circumstances. I just want to say that again. All of us, we are doing the best we can under the circumstances. So before we do anything else, let's just take a deep breath. This is actually called combat breathing, which might feel appropriate for some of us right now. So what you do is you hold a breath for 4 seconds, you breathe in, you hold for 4 seconds, you breathe in again, you hold. So you do it with me. So ready? Breathe in for 4 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold for 4 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's something we can do to try to just calm ourselves when things are getting crazy, because today's topic is playing through COVID-19. Think like a play worker. Lonnie, who am I?
So one thing I wanted to share about the opportunity I get to do. Uh-oh, I heard chatting. Is that me?
Yeah, everybody mute your mics if you haven't done it already. Though I think at some point maybe we'll all unmute and we can hear the chaos in our houses.
Yeah.
But go on, Lonnie.
So one of the cool opportunities I get to do with Megan is we share a desk. So all day long, we're constantly planning, talking, brainstorming ideas. And I've been at the New Children's Museum for 12 years now. And Megan's been there for about, what, 7? About 7 years?
7,
And when she first started, we were so grateful to have her join our team because she was this play expert. And when I first met her during her interview, I remember reading that she was getting a master's in play and playwork at a school in the United Kingdom. And I looked at her and was like, what the heck is this? And why am I not studying this? And she's like, yes, you need to. And so right then we just totally, got along. And she's like a big kid at heart and helps me think through all the joys of childhood that I need to remind myself about. And something that I am really excited about for True Tuesdays and for parents, caregivers, all the professionals that are going through this really tough time is if you are a parent at home, working at home for the first time like me, Megan's expertise is really going to help all of us think through play in a new way and reminding yourself to honor that you get to see your kids play right now and you otherwise wouldn't because you would be working. And so that's what I'm really looking forward to, is learning from her even more through this and having her share with our wider community, all over the world, if we can, how to look at play in a new lens. And, it's almost like therapy. And so I just wanted to honor that and share that we're really grateful to have her on our team at the museum. And I get to share a desk with her. So.
I really miss sharing a desk with you, Lonnie. Thank you. I really appreciate that. So to launch right into it, hashtag True Tuesday, hashtag Think, Play, Create from Home. Does your house look like this right now? You can raise your hand in the chat. Now this is from a pop-up adventure playground we did at the Children's Museum several years ago. But there is a critical moment that you start to feel a little overwhelmed by the amount of play in your home. And there's something that all of you, I think, know is true, that children will play anywhere and with anything. They can play waiting for the doctor. They can play while they're on the sidewalk. in many ways, we're not necessary to ensure that kids will play. But at this time of great uncertainty and stress and pressure, children wanting to play with us can be very stressful. So this is from the Philadelphia Museum. They had posted this where it was, you know, boss, are you free for a video chat? Me, and this is what's happening. So you've got one child who wants to play horsey and wants to get on your back. The baby just wants to be held and constantly picked up. And then you've got a 6-year-old who wants help with new math, and you're like, what the heck is going on? So all of these things are happening. And what happens to play under stress is that it disappears. Animal theorists talk about this, how an animal who is in fear of predation is not going to play. And right now, there's a lot of predation. Like, we feel like we don't know what's going to happen next. We don't know what's going to happen with our jobs. And the kids may be having a great time. One of our community partners said that her grandson, she asked him, how's he doing? And he said, this has been the best. Dogs are loving this. Cats are loving this. This is great for everybody except for grown-ups. And one of the things that's really hard about that is that I think we realize that play really is deep down a desire for connection. So when our child comes up to us and wants to get on our back or gives us some kind of play cue with a stuffy, and we're not able to do that because we're trying to hold it all together with everything that's coming our way, whether we're filing for unemployment or trying to keep our job as it is right now. So we can feel really guilty about that. And you know, when a child invites you to play, it's really like they're saying, I noticed you over there, and I think you have great potential as a play object. You seem more interesting than my toys right now. You know, let's see where this goes. Let's hang out. At the same time, there's all this pressure to keep our kids busy. And so I've seen the word busy so many times in listings, articles, MSNBC, how to keep your kids busy. And that's a lot of pressure because it makes it seem like we have to constantly be intervening in order to be good caregivers. What I think is kind of happening right now is similar to what happens when you set up a pop-up adventure playground, lots of loose parts, or even at the beginning of a birthday party, when all the kids are first coming in and they're trying to figure out what can be done here. So we're all in this 15 minutes of chaos where we're trying to figure out our bearings and get some sort of sense of routine. After that happens, when kids are playing all together, you have this moment of beauty where everything starts to settle down and you start to feel a little bit more relaxed and things shift, but we're not quite there yet. So I want to tell you a little bit about some things that are helpful for us at the New Children's Museum and in a practice that I studied called Playwork. And there's something a little bit different than typically how we think of providing activities for children and young people. Playworkers support all children and young people in the creation of a space in which they can play. So that's just a really simple way of talking about what Playworkers do. The people that, if you've been to the Children's Museum, the people who work in exhibition spaces are playworkers, and the people who work in studio spaces are teaching artists. And both of them are thinking about how they can create this space where people can create and play. Now, to boil it down in a really simple way, what playworkers do, I think in order of importance, is they observe, they reflect on those observations, and then they intervene if necessary. That's different than what we typically think we're supposed to do as adults. So we're typically thinking that we need to, okay, plan a bunch of activities, and then maybe we'll reflect on what's happening, and then maybe we'll watch and see how this all plays out. So even here, at the same pop-up adventure playground kind of space that I showed you earlier from the museum, the playworkers are in the back there, and they're mainly just watching and observing. And if they're invited in, they will they will engage with kids and play. So there's lots of what we talk about with play and play work, but today, very briefly, so we have a lot of time for conversation, I want to talk about one of the skills that play workers use in helping to create spaces for play, and that's just observation. So in the chat, if you can respond, just yes or no, have you overheard your child playing this week? While you're doing whatever you're doing, have you overheard your child or children playing with each other? Cool. I think it's probably going to be a yes for most of it. Again, like I said, you're already a play worker. You're already noticing and observing that your child is playing. So then one of the tools that we train play workers in using at the New Children's Museum is this idea of beginner's mind. Because we're so used to looking at kids and trying to figure out how do we steer them in one direction. But if you look at that children's play, if you look at your child playing with whatever resources that child has around him or her, and you look at it without judgment, you might see something a little bit different. So we separate it out into what, how, why. So you can just take a piece of paper and sketch this out. What, how, and why. So it's really, what is your child doing? And try to be as objective as you can in how you're thinking about it. So this one actually comes from Lonnie. And Lonnie said that her daughter is talking to her Peppa Pig stuffy. And she is saying, "We have to find your pajamas. Let's go get your change clothes." Lonnie, did I do the voice right?
Yes, that was on point. That was very
So, how is she doing what she's doing? Well, she's doing it in kind of a chatty, relaxed, sing-songy, and high-pitched way. So it would be very different, right, if she said, "We have to find your pajamas.
Right.
Let's go get your change clothes."
Right, yeah.
Right? So you've already gotten some information. And then you make some guesses. Why is she doing what she is doing? Mm-hmm. So Lonnie brought up that they've been trying to keep some normalcy by, changing her clothes every day, not wearing her pajamas all day.
Right.
And so, maybe change clothes is how she's hearing change your clothes. And she's also doing the thing where she's probably mimicking Lonnie a little bit.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, so time to get ready. Right.
Yeah, time to get ready. These are things that she's noticing and she's processing. So other examples I've seen from friends this week also involve what is happening in the world. So on the left, we have a stuffy, and the child has said, "Ruff, ruff, that's your new maskie. You're so lucky to have one. You're the first stuffy to have one." So that's really interesting if you stop and you think about it, right? So first of all, she's playing with these masks that her mom is making for the community, and she's understanding that not everybody has a mask. So there might be some scarcity that she's playing out with that, but she wants to make sure that her loved ones, her loved stuffy, has one of those. And then another one on the right where she's drawing a hospital, and you can see on the left there's a little red cross on it. And she's saying, I drew a hospital I would make if coronavirus is still here when I'm a grown-up and I'm an architect. So you hear this and you also think, okay, well, they have no idea how long this is going to go. And neither do we. We're actually kind of in the same boat. Kids don't know how long this is going to go on, and we don't. Now, most likely, we think that we won't be dealing with this in 20 years or so, but we're unsure, and they're processing this through their play. Now, if you look at that with, oh my God, I have to fix this, and I have to intervene, and we have to talk about it, make sure that she's okay, and that I make sure that she knows that this too shall pass. That can make us even more stressed out. So kids' play can actually stress us out more even when we're observing. But this comes from a caregiver who I talked to in front of the Wobbleland installation by Marisol Rondon. And she said, like watching an aquarium, watching children play. And I think Lonnie brought this up earlier, that it's really kind of an honor to be able to watch and listen to children in their play environments. And we don't always get that level of exposure that we're now getting. So after you've done your what, how, why observations, that's really where you can start to think of maybe some interventions. So let's say you observe that your child is playing hospital with her stuffed animals, and she says, "Everybody's sick right now, we have to get you well." So you might reflect, she's noticing what's happening, you know? You might think about what kind of conversations you've been having around her that she might know about that, or has she seen this on the news, or has she been talking to her friends over Zoom? And so one thing you might do is, while she's sleeping, you might take a cardboard box and, you know, write hospital or draw a red cross on it or something like that, and then cut a little door in the box. And then maybe you'll leave out some tape and some supplies nearby. And then when your child asks about it in the morning, you can say, you know, last night looks like the community was able to build a new hospital to help all the people. What else do you think it needs? So you've taken what she's already doing in her play and you've responded to it in a way that allows her to keep that play going. Another thing you might observe is your child is hanging out under the dining room table. And that's all well and good, but you want to try to maintain some normalcy by everybody eating at the table every night. So you have her clean up all those things that she's put under the table. So different times call for different methods. You might decide that she's using that space because it is a little space that she can control. And a lot of play is about being in control of being out of control. So think about when you're spinning wildly in a circle. You're doing that and you might get dizzy, but you know that if you fall down, you're not going to get terribly hurt, right? So thinking about a space that your child can control that might have some change day to day. There's a member of our community at the New Children's Museum who's was doing a renovation on her house, and they were living in their basement for a while. And she literally let her son use under the table for all his cardboard creations, and they just put a tablecloth over it, and they still ate at the table every night. But he could have control over that little part of his world. Lonnie, I think, brought this one up, that sometimes when she's putting away Mila's toys, she does it in sort of this careful, tender way, where it's sort of recognizing that they have their own lives. And so she'll position them on the shelf. She still puts them on the shelf, but she puts them in a way where they're having a little bit of a conversation. So that's something that's very simple, but you might be able to engage in play in that way. Because, you know, when children are arranging their toys, they have a very specific method to it, and it can be very disruptive when we clean it up. At the same time, we don't want to feel crazy, because right now there's so much going on that having a house that looks like that image that I shared at the beginning with all the cardboard boxes might make us go over the edge. So it's really finding where is the place that you can still feel like things aren't completely out of control. And it also offers you a place to play that isn't you directing the play necessarily. You're engaging, you're following the cue of your child. So observe and reflect. In later talks, we can maybe go into more details about Playwork and some of those techniques, but I just want to emphasize that this is a stressful time for grown-ups. And our kids, even if they think that they're having a great time, they notice what is happening too. But we'll get through this together, and play can be a tool that helps us learn about what our kids are thinking about. It's also a way for kids to learn about us. There's been a big focus on how do we continue kids learning during this time? How do we make sure that there's not the summer slump, but the whole year long, right? But I really think this is a time for us to learn, more importantly, about each other. So I'm going to end there for the talk part, but do a little bit of a pivot. In the chat, can you share something that your child did this week or last week to make you laugh out loud.
And for anyone who'd rather not share to everybody, feel free to pull down that arrow where it says everyone in the chat bar, and you can pick my name, Lonnie, Lani, and I'm happy to share for you.
Meg, sorry, I need some clarification. It says she plays with her stuffed animals and on FaceTime with her other friends, and now with my head.
She was grabbing her head at the time. I think we missed it.
Yes.
Oh,
All of
man.
this
Oh, hi, Joy. How's it going? Is Joy there somewhere?
She's not there anymore.
Oh, too bad. Too bad.
We went out to scoot.
Amy, do you mind elaborating?
No, so hi, I'm Amy. I'm the education manager at the museum. I have a 3-year-old and a 15-month-old who are, this never happens, who are both sleeping right now. So that has not been my experience this week. And my colleagues have been very generous. I've had lots of interesting interruptions by them, and some of which I've shared, and others of which I've just kept quiet about. So I made a note of one of them, which was my 3-year-old came up to me and he just looked at me and he said, "Mom, I'm sticky." And I looked down at him, fully covered in honey. And you know, my first impulse was, oh my gosh, I've got to get him cleaned up. And then I just said, you know what? No, we're just going to laugh at this. And I just said, buddy, how did this happen? He said, I don't know. We did our best and gave him a bath, you know, 3 hours later. But yeah, it's been funny, all that he's been sharing with me this week. Oftentimes when I'm on work calls, because, you know, as Megan had mentioned before, he's wanting that connection with me and I want to give it to him. So one of the things we have done, I'll share, is when I can, I've been taking play breaks with him. So the other day we were both having a rough day. I will just say it was rough. We were struggling. We took a break and we played Pirate Rabbits for about 20 minutes in the backyard, and then came back into the house and resumed our, you know, our different things that we were doing. And it really made all the difference for me. And that hasn't been every day, I'll share, but it was really helpful. And I was kind of channeling Megan and this idea of being part of the play during that moment. And it helped me. So I wanted to share that too, along with the funny anecdote.
Oh, I love that.
Please note, as Amy travels through her house, this is what we see all day with her, is her moving on this journey all day long, just walking laps.
I'm getting, but it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot of
Yeah, it must be miles and miles. It's amazing. Are you holding the hand of what of, or are you just walking?
I'm just walking. I'm so used to it. I'm used to while doing this, but now I can't stop. So I'm just walking. It feels normal now.
Hashtag True Tuesdays. Oh, sorry, Meg. I don't want to put you on the spot, but that's like the Joy appearing in the Zooms with like chaps.
Yeah. So my husband works from home, but Joy goes to public school, and I work evenings a lot. And so it's always like, where is mama? Like, where is she? What does she do? Where is she? And now she's like, oh, now I know. And so she wants to appear at work with me because I'm on Zoom a lot. Very fortunate to have my job. And so she just loves to like pop up. I was not expecting the leg warmers pulled up. She was wearing pajamas under it, but still it was like really goofy looking.
Oh my God.
Yeah. But I also was glad that I'm glad that she's appearing that way. I mean, she's appearing as her full self. And I think it's great that now I have this, I think it's important that other people see that people have families and that I'm not trying to keep her away from it. And I also like including her in my work, even though sometimes it's really like, because it spices it up.
Yeah. Well, and that is, so we work at a children's museum, and so I think maybe we talk about the kids in our lives a little bit more than we might if we worked at a bank. Sorry, I sound like such a child because like the only thing I can think of is bank.
What grown-ups do? Bank.
Banks. That's what grown-ups do. They work at banks. But yeah, just the reality of it, like aside from just being able to see inside each other's houses, but like, Mila, Lonnie's daughter, has shown me the inside of her tent. I would never have seen the inside of her tent if we weren't doing this,
Yeah. And speaking
it's
of
just
things that we keep out, that tent is just, it's living in the room next to the dining table forever. Like my husband was in it this morning, and it's just there. It just lives in our house.
Wait, yeah, in the chat, who else has a tent at home? And even if you don't have kids, that's fine too. You can have a tent at your house. I've been thinking about doing a Zoom tent.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Do a little Zoom tent. I was listening to NPR, and one of the journalists has set up a sound booth for himself under his dining room table and put couch cushions all around it so that he can buffer out some of the sound while he's broadcasting from his apartment. And I'm thinking,
Brilliant.
Yeah. Well, because it's all working within limitations. And, I think as artists, we often think about how can we work within limitations. And that's really why I like thinking about art and play in the same sort of category, because there's a lot of similarities. It's what can I do? What more can be done with the things that are around me? So when Joy is playing with Zoom, that's so creative. She's already seen, okay, this is a platform. I can play with this, and it's also messaging to your colleagues that, no, this is life. This is okay. They're getting to see what you do all day.
Megan, in looking at the chat, I was doing a quick tally, and I think the age groups vary for those of us who have children, between 1 to 15, but there's a couple people who have 4-year-olds and a couple people who have 6-year-olds. So I wasn't sure if there's anything you wanted to point out for any specific age groups, or if there's anything we can think about there, but I just wanted to bring that up. But also, if there's anything that we can address or talk about for those who don't have children in regards to this conversation. I mean, we talk about how, you don't have children of your own. You're a fur mama of 2 cat babies.
Who show up a lot in Zoom too.
Yes, exactly. They take over. So yeah, those are just 2 things I thought about before we jump to the next slide, if we wanted to connect on.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's interesting because, so there's a couple kids I've been having FaceTime calls with, and one is 6 and one is 4. And it's completely different experience playing with both of them, because the 4-year-old, it's my nephew, and we've been playing Simon Says on Zoom, and I realized that I was like, why does he keep wanting me to touch my teeth and touch my nose and touch my eye? Which I was like, this is a terrible idea. This is coronavirus time. We can't touch our teeth. But it was so dumb. I realized that that's all he could see on FaceTime was my face. And it was so obvious, but it was just a reminder of kind of when you're 4, like there's a little bit more of like, I'm only going to play with what I can see, versus the 6-year-old I've been Zooming with, like, would probably be like, you need to step back a little bit if we're going to play Simon Says, And then the other thing for older kids, it's really, so with Alice, we have this play frame that we keep coming back into, and it's kind of confusing, but it's The Adventures of Presidents and Cats. And it came from when I was first talking to her. I have these little tiny presidential figurines, a collection of them, and she's like, what can we play with? And I was like, I don't really have many toys, but I have this, and I have this cat, you know? And so every time we talk, we do another episode of the Adventures of Presidents with Cats, as if we're doing a show, but we're not actually doing a show. It's just like, I think we need to move on to episode 8. And be like, when do we tell her that President McKinley gets assassinated? I don't think we can tell her that. They're just he's fine. He's carrying his hat. It's okay. But it's all, you know, if I went in there saying I'd like to do this project called Adventures of Presidents and Cats, it probably wouldn't have been as successful. It was mainly because we were collaborating together and we were coming up with something together. Yeah. So, and I'm also really aware that, like, I study play professionally. You know, I'm a play researcher, and I think a lot about this, and a lot of my time is spent thinking about how do I create spaces at the New Children's Museum that are conducive to play. But it's very different when I have responsibility for a child. So right now it's kind of fun to talk to my nephew. When I'm babysitting my nephew, I'm kind of like, well, I don't know if we should do that, you know. let's just tone that down. Okay, maybe you shouldn't be in that tree right now. I'm a completely different character, right, than I am when I'm not. And then there's other play workers I've talked to who have kids, and they said that they have to really get into this idea. Like, they kind of go back to that. What is happening objectively? How is that thing happening, and why? Because it's a way of almost mindfulness, without saying, this is the child that I have pledged my life to care for, and all my main interest is just, how do I keep this child alive? To, this is somebody who's different than me. This child is not me. This child is an individual, and is going to have play impulses that are different than my typical play impulses.
Yeah.
And then for those of you who don't have kids, you know, I think if you are interested in how can you, I don't know, help out people who are home with kids, because I've been very aware during our Zoom calls that, you know, everybody is stressed, but I don't have a 4-year-old who's coming up and needing something from me at that moment, right? So I felt this kind of need to help out my friends with kids, you know, to give them just a moment. And sometimes it's just 15 minutes. Like, that's all I can do with my nephew is 15 minutes, because he'll be really engaged, and then he'll just go, bye, and then turn the phone upside down, and I'm just looking at the ceiling saying, help, anybody, anybody. But I'm just trying to think of those kinds of mechanisms, right? Yeah.
Well, maybe we should put it out there on the next slide, because one of the things that we're hoping to do through True Tuesdays, that was fun, is figure out how we can continue to connect our community with each other, and more importantly, just learn what some of the challenges are that people are facing, whether you have children or not. And so we are posing this question and would love to hear from you. This is an email address that we'd love for you to write to if you have questions or suggestions or things that you're thinking about, feeling that maybe we'll find something to consider. You know, one important thing that we're trying to factor in is that one day the museum will reopen. And we don't want people to feel even more unsafe or uncomfortable. We want people to know that we're grateful that they have returned and that they are safe and comfortable, and that we're happy that they've decided to come back. And we're thinking that these conversations every week are going to help us listen and hear what people are challenged with, so that we can respond. There's a question about, are we going to be sharing the PowerPoint? And I support employees who are parents with working remotely, and I know they would find this information valuable. Thank you. So we are recording, right, Megan?
We are. Yeah, we're recording it. So this chat was recorded, and then we'll also, if you want to email that same address, we can make sure that you get like a PDF of the PowerPoint as well.
Right.
And that's also, it's interesting because I think in this moment, we don't necessarily know what to ask for yet, right? We don't really know exactly what it is that we're needing. And I think I'll put another slide up actually here. We've really pulled together a lot of resources on our website. So if you go to thinkplaycreate.org, and actually I'm forgetting the full, Carrie, what's the easiest way to get to the resources on the website?
I was muted. Well, actually, if you go to our homepage, all of these links are on the homepage, right in the middle where it says during our closure. But the blog page is a good place to go because we can aggregate things by typing in create or think, play, create from home. And then you have all the social media. The coloring pages, there's links to all of that. Design challenges are on the Innovators Lab page, but yes.
Yeah, so they've done a fantastic job of putting together, sorry to Carrie to put you on the spot, but of putting together all kinds of resources, things that, Lonnie and Amy and their teams have been making for, quite a while, but putting them all in one place. But then also just thinking about our curiosities, do caregivers want to be connected with each other? Because that's something that the New Children's Museum does. We're a really great place to go, and we have fantastic spaces that you can't find anywhere else. But I think what's most important about our space is that people connect there. So I know members who have met each other at the museum and are now best friends. And those kinds of connections wouldn't have happened otherwise. And so that's the thing that we're really kind of missing, because we're not all together in the same space. How can we still help connect caregivers with each other? We have some information to share, but all of you have information to share as well. So I don't know if that's of interest, or, maybe were you going to say something?
I was just going to say, I noticed a comment from someone about once you're engaging in play, considering an exit strategy.
Yeah.
You have, recommendations or ways to do that masterfully.
Well, that's actually a perfect way to finish our chat. How do we exit this chat gracefully? No, I think this is the tricky part, right? So play cues, and maybe in another talk, we can talk a little bit about what we call the play cycle. So it's sort of how a child gives you a play cue, or actually any of us gives a play cue to each other, and how you return that play cue. So a lot of times these play cues are happening at times where you really can't return them in the way that the kid wants them returned, right? So like in the middle of a Zoom call, you might go, okay, this is happening. All right, right? And so I think my strategy, and I think the strategy of a lot of my colleague playworkers, some of whom are on the call, is to be really upfront about it. Be like, acknowledge the play cue, right? I know that you're wanting to do this right now, but I have to do this first, and then afterwards we can do this, right? In the play cycle, there's something called annihilation, where you're in the middle of play and then something happens, and sometimes the kid doesn't get to control when that play ends. So it's like, hey, it's time to go, the play session is over. That can be an external annihilation, right? And so it's more like, if you can, within the play frame, use the play frame that you created. So let's say you're playing with Peppa Pig, and you have to stop and you have to say, like, you know what? I need to put Peppa Pig with you for right now because I have to go do this other thing. And if you're able to use the storyline, it eases it. And it also gives the child a graceful way to get out of it without necessarily feeling like they've been abandoned, right? Because they'll know, like, for the most part, they'll know what you're doing. They always know if you're like, oh, I'm going to go over here. Like, that's a way of disguising what you're actually doing. It's best when they know that they know that you're doing what you're doing, if that makes sense, right? So you're not trying to pull the wool over their eyes.
Yeah.
From my
I know
experience.
when my son Oliver and I play Pirate Rabbits, we have a set mission, and we know that once that mission is complete, that's become sort of a cue for, okay, this play break is over, but we'll resume.
Yes.
Next time.
Yes.
We'll
And
resume.
sane.
Mm-hmm.
With Alice and I, we're doing that by episode. It looks like episode 8 is over and I have to make dinner. You know, so you're still within the play frame and you're still being honest. You're like, I have to go find what's in my cupboard and make something with beans. Well, on that note, please do check out the resources on the Children's Museum website. And then if you have ideas of how we might be able to continue this, or even topics that you would like us to explore next week, please let us know at education@thinkplaycreate.org. We'll make this talk available on, I think, our website pretty soon. And those of you who want the PowerPoint, just let us know and we can send you a PDF of that directly. All right, I think that's it. Thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate you taking the time. And also we welcome feedback on timing. So if there's another time that's better, we were thinking that this might be during nap time for some people, but not necessarily. And I know we have some friends from East Coast as well. So this then runs right into dinner time. So open to other suggestions. We're just kind of figuring it out. All right. Thanks, everybody.